Okay, we'll move to amendments. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will distribute the amendment. Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment to the activities report will require the committee to consider and report mine safety legislation before the end of this Congress. It has been more than 2 years since 29 miners were killed in the Upper Big Branch explosion. There were many lives upended and tears shed at the time, and promises made to take all necessary actions to prevent a similar disaster from ever happening again. Despite requests for legislative reforms from many sides, including the head of the Mine Safety Administration, the majority has stated that we must wait until all of the investigations have been completed. We've waited patiently. 4 investigative reports have now been completed, and yet there has been no action. MSHA's internal review has been completed. NIOSH's review has been completed, and there has been no action. Miners and families affected by the Upper Big Branch tragedy have urged us to move forward with legislation, and yet there is no action. I share the frustration of those miners and their families. I believe if we work together, we can find common ground to move forward legislatively. There is broad agreement that Massey was a bad actor. The kind of behavior laid out in the investigation should be unacceptable to anyone, and clearly is not indicative of the behavior of most of the industry. And it should be rare, as it is rare, and that's why we should deal with it. There should only be a small number of mine operators recklessly putting production ahead of safety the way Massey did, and we should address those operators. This was a conscious decision made by the owners of this company. The UBB investigation point to areas where Congress needs to strengthen the mine safety laws. Congress needs to provide meaningful deterrent against giving advance notice of inspections. Advance notice is nothing more than an obstruction of justice, and yet the law treats it as a misdemeanor. Congress needs to strengthen the miners' job protections for speaking up on dangerous conditions. Congress needs to give MSHA the subpoena power for investigations and inspections, and provide sufficient authority to shut down mines in a timely manner when they are persistently endangering miners' lives. And Congress needs to give inspectors tools to go up the chain of command to hold all of those responsible for putting miners in danger and making operators who criminally endanger the lives of miners subject to felony prosecution. A few weeks ago, I was privileged to sit down with the Upper Big Branch families and discuss their concerns and the need for reform. I understand a number of members of the House and Senate on both sides of the aisle had the same privilege of meeting with these families. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with these families when they came to Washington. These brave individuals choked back tears while they issued a plea to take action so their loved ones did not die in vain. They came to Washington to stand up for miners who go underground every day. They urged us to work together to close the loopholes in our mine safety laws. I am eager to do precisely that. But despite the majority's public statements about all options remain on the table, we are still waiting for even the initial step. All that remains is action. Public statements are no longer enough. Further delay only allows miners' lives to be put at unnecessary risk. And when and if there is another tragedy, I sincerely hope there will not be, all eyes will turn to this committee and ask, why didn't we act? Why didn't we do everything in our power to protect those miners who go underground every day? I urge the members to adopt my amendment and to commit ourselves to producing legislation that will provide miners the real protection and to hold bad mine operators accountable. The families of Upper Big Branch mine tragedy and all miners deserve Congress to live up to its promise. I would just say, Mr. Chairman, I would hope that people would look at the discussion that has been taking place. We have refined the legislative suggestions down to activities that are willfully and knowingly engaged in by a handful of small mine operators to obstruct justice, to continue to carry 2 sets of books, one for the inspectors and one for the business entity, to continue to punish whistleblowers that are trying to save the health and the lives of the miners that they work with. Those activities should not be allowed. They're not allowed in any other industry, but they're allowed in the mining industry, and they're misdemeanors. And we're either going to separate the bad actors from those who are responsible in this industry, or they're going to drag down the rest of the industry. We should not allow that to happen, and I would hope that we could give consideration to what is from what the statements that have been made when the families visited the lawmakers is pretty clearly a consensus position about how we should deal with the bad actors in this field to protect the lives of good people who go to work every day to provide the energy this country needs. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back.